This week's episode of Still Untitled is made possible with support from the Rochester Institute of Technology. Faculty and students there recently built a robot fish. Why? Because it could lead to a new wave of prosthetics, and now we're all hooked. At RIT, that creative team of engineers is on to something life-changing. Learn more about the project at rit.edu/untitled. Now on with the show.
Welcome to Still Untitled, the Adam Savage Project. I'm Will.
I'm Adam.
And I'm Norm.
Light clipping today.
Did that clip at the beginning?
Just a little bit,
it
yeah.
Well, it wouldn't be a proper podcast if it didn't clip to proper. So
Our audio engineer is off today.
It's been a hot minute since we all got together. Last week, we didn't podcast last week because we had Adam's Maker Faire Sunday sermon as the episode last week. So I hope you all out there enjoyed that. So we have quite a bit. I don't think we've podcasted together since we talked about Avengers Endgame.
That was okay.
I went and saw it again.
I haven't yet.
Still, I cried even more. I found it even more affecting.
I feel really bad because John Wick came out this week and I haven't seen it yet either.
I haven't either.
I didn't.
Plenty of time to watch that.
So I wanted to go back and go see both of those movies and just have not had time. Detective Pikachu out. I kind of want to see that
out
because it looks like a real amazing. It looks like the Roger Rabbit of our time.
That's, a little bit of noir.
Yeah,
murder mystery.
Yeah, but
Endgame. Okay, you went to see it. Did you see it in like IMAX or is it a regular theater?
I just saw it in a regular theater twice.
Was it packed still?
Yeah, both times. In fact, we saw it at the Alamo Draft House the second time, and we were off to the side.
Wow.
I'm glad to hear that people who are watching the box office are nervous now because the drop-off, it's closed its run in some places overseas. I think it's wrapped up its run in China, and so it might not beat Avatar as the highest-grossing film ever, even though everyone thought it was a foregone conclusion.
Wow.
It would do that after the first weekend's
Jim
success.
Cameron can rest in peace.
Did you notice things in this new viewing that you didn't the first time, or did you connect with pieces more?
I connected with it more. So my wife has not been as assiduous about logging all the Marvel films that I have.
I'm shocked.
Yeah.
Sir. Shocked.
But I will tell you that after we went and saw Captain Marvel, we were both so high on Marvel love that we came home and immediately watched Guardians 1.
Yeah.
And then the next night we watched Guardians 2. And the next night we watched... we didn't watch Civil War. No, a few nights later we watched Winter Soldier.
Mm-hmm.
And then when we went and saw Endgame, we came back and the next night we watched Ragnarok. And we finished that last night. So it's just back in that lovely... It was just like going back into that lovely universe. And I found it even more affecting the second time. I found the emotional beats hit me nice and hard. And wow, I love it when Captain Marvel goes... Hello, Peter Parker.
Yeah.
I am so excited for 10 years from now when somebody writes the How This All Happened book. Because if you look at the run from Civil War or Black Panther, or probably Civil War through Ragnarok and Black Panther, all of the stuff that came out in the back half of Phase 3 leading up to Endgame and Infinity War. And they didn't really mess up. They had a million different teams working on these movies. Yeah. They were releasing 2 or 3 a year, which is that's ludicrous.
It's ludicrous. And then you watch Ragnarok, which we finished last night, and it's I love that my primary question after watching it is, how did a studio get out of this movie's way?
Right.
Just to let it happen with Taika Waititi's, all of his in-jokes from New Zealand that the rest of the world won't get, and still it has this magical...
Well, Sakaar is Space New Zealand. We've established that now.
Yeah. I think after movie 10, they realized they couldn't. Once we're done with the origin stories, they realized in order to keep things fresh, they had to give creative control and credit to the producers there to hire directors who are different and have unique visions, and they knew that a movie this big was gonna have the beats to sell, right? They're gonna have the big action beats.
Yeah, and yet. I think that Lucasfilm, having done such extensive reshoots on Rogue One that we now know were deeply extensive, and what
Solo.
seems like an entirely separate film being shot with Solo.
Yeah, we can get
it's
Solo
like,
2 next year.
It's an easy thing to screw up.
Well, and that's the
And I'm
fundamental
not saying
difference.
that I'm not saying that I know why Lucasfilm screwed up. I don't know if they got in the way or got way too out of the way. Like, and that might not be a knowable thing.
I think that with the Star Wars universe, and it's all under the same umbrella, all under Disney, right? Although, of course, Marvel has its own executive team, and of course, Lucas has his own executive team. In terms of what the fans expect with Marvel, there's a comic universe that the first 6 movies were really reverent to.
Right.
And it got to a point where the cinematic universe could be its own thing, and people would trust that.
Right.
With Star Wars, there's nothing but the movies that people hold as the most precious thing, and maybe that's why
That could
they
be.
put more weight into it.
I feel like if you look at Thor as the example, right? It opens. I mean, we were talking about this before the show. It opens a little bit slow. It isn't just an absolute barn burner. It isn't like the opening of Guardians 2 when they have this incredible fight and it's like it picks up right where it left off before.
Yeah, and rewatching Guardians 1 and 2 and Ragnarok, which I had kind of put all under the same heading in my head, they're radically different films. And Guardians 1 and 2 are just an unfettered, super fun romp all the way through.
I mean, Ragnarok opens with the "How did I get here?"
No,
with the
I
sword
know it
guy.
does.
Right.
Listen, I'm just saying, having watched the
Yes,
two within the
yes.
same week, Ragnarok feels like a little bit slower to bring you into this weird, wonderful universe.
Well, but at the same time, Ragnarok opens with Led Zeppelin, which is the thing you've kind of been waiting for from Thor the entire time. And then they play the song again at the end of the movie, and it's so satisfying. And you're just like, oh.
I was thinking about this because I was watching the finale last night, and I was thinking I read this wonderful analysis of Zack Snyder and the DCEU, the DC universe.
Yeah.
In that they said one of the difficulties is that Snyder sets up these surpassingly beautiful visual moments, but does not frequently support them with the emotional beats that bring the catharsis.
Yeah.
So it's Superman standing there getting healed by the sun, but you haven't been drawn in, so it's not affecting you the same way. Whereas Ragnarok, when Thor is following the bolt of lightning into the all the enemies
The melee,
you are. It's like Taika showing this is how you do it. This is what it's.
I also love that someone like Taika Waititi didn't need to immediately jump into the next Thor. Like, he's directing Akira as his next movie, and what a wonderful decision to do that and not be locked into. Even though, of course, having huge ownership into the Thor that we now know and this version of Thor, he can still let that go.
Here's the thing, though. This version of Akira is now entering its 20th year of development, I think.
Well,
So,
and everyone's been attached at some point.
Yeah,
Cameron, Chris Columbus, Chris Cunningham.
It's everybody, but
Not Chris Columbus, Chris Cunningham.
yeah, not Chris Columbus. But yeah, it's I'll be interested to see if that gets made.
Same thing with Snow Crash, right? It's one of these
I would love a Taika Waititi Snow Crash.
Oh my
Holy
God!
shit.
By the way, I'm halfway through Fall.
Oh, you have it?
Yeah.
Oh, I hate
Neal's-
you so much.
Neal's new book?
I hate you so much. Oh my God! I even went fishing on Twitter. I was like, man, I'm really jealous of all these people with the fall galleries.
What can you say? Are you under embargo?
I almost sent you a picture of
I
me with
would've-
the copy and just holding up the middle finger.
Wait. So explain.
Fall is Neal Stephenson's new book, which involves Dodge Forthrast, a character from Reamdy.
Yeah.
Which is.
I might go back and read Reamdy in a row.
And it is worth rereading.
Okay.
I want to reread it after
It's
this.
probably my least favorite of the Neal Stephenson oeuvre.
Well, it's way outside his normal dive, and yet I love Reamdy in the same way that Vineland is a great Pynchon novel.
Yeah.
It's fun and funny and sweet
Or
and
Summerland and Chabon.
right,
Yeah.
right. It falls outside their normal canon, but it's still really I loved it.
I love
Can
that
you
was
say
what I-
anything about the plot? Does it have a
Don't-
hook
don't-
like Seven
don't.
Years
No,
I
the book's
have
not out
to
yet. Don't
say,
say
actually,
anything.
Neal gave me a tiny synopsis, and I wished I hadn't had it. I wanted to go in super cold.
Who's it for? Fans of Neil, fans of Seven Eves, fans of
So I will say this, and this isn't a spoiler. It actually covers it. So I'm halfway through, and we're already like 25 years in the future.
Of Reamd. Reamd was present day, right?
Reamd is absolutely present day. So this is 25 years
ago.
from there, from now, and he is positing a very interesting and what deeply feels like a deeply realistic future, where facts are something you choose based on your tribe.
Oh, I don't want.
I'm curious.
Read
For
this.
him, is it easier to write a story set 10 to 20 years in the future, or a story set 1,000 years in the future?
Yeah, I feel like it's easier to do the. Look, I'm not a science fiction author, so I have no answer. I mean,
Bill
it
Gibson has
seems
talked
to me
about this
that
a lot.
1,000 years is easier.
Bill Gibson said writing a science fiction story set in the present is the hardest thing he did.
Yeah.
Right. Like
Yeah.
with pattern recognition and that trilogy, the Blue Ant trilogy or whatever. I don't know what people call it.
All Tomorrow's no
No.
Spook Country.
Pattern recognition, Spook Country, and I can't remember the last one, but I liked it a lot.
Hey, all the
love
Marvel
Spook
films we
Country.
set 5 years in the future.
What's that?
All
Now
the
they
Marvel
are.
films are now set 5 years in the future.
So they are. So they are. Unless it takes 3 years for one to come out.
No, they're going to be having.
I think they probably got it covered.
Well, where do you think the Marvel films can go from here? I
Well,
mean,
Spider-Man, they're going to go to Europe, I think.
Yes, that is the next film coming out in a month or a half. Well done, Dad joke.
Well, I'm actually really excited about as Guardians of the Galaxy.
If that is the film, like,
Well,
God,
James Gunn, who's back in directing Guardians 3, has said that Guardians 3 will deal a lot more with Rocket's backstory, and I'm super excited.
Yeah.
Because frankly, and look, we're now going to talk some spoilers. Like when Rocket and Nebula hold hands in Endgame, it affected me. That might be one of the most affecting bits. And Gunn was saying that Rocket is him.
Well,
That the misfit that Rocket
Yeah.
is the character Gunn most identifies with.
He's a misanthrope who becomes whatever an anthrope. I don't know what the opposite of misanthrope is.
but in terms of escalation, right? If we spent 10 years and 22 films building up to this
With
the
Thanos,
biggest,
is it Galacticus? I don't know who the
Galactus,
best
like,
villains
Galactus,
are.
or
yeah.
can it doesn't even make sense to have a type of build up? Like
I don't know.
Isn't it more important, like this? Or the stakes, and because we've talked about this in the past, one of the
Right.
reasons, like, there's a whole trend of movies that we didn't really like because the world being at stake every time got boring.
It's kind of the problem with Mission Impossible, right?
And Thanos works because, yes, one, it is the universe at stake, and they hammer that in, but it's also very personal. It is their friendship, the friends that they lost.
It's Gamora's dad, right? Like there's all
That
there's all
really
sorts of
sinks in
interesting
more and
stakes.
more
Yeah.
as the films progress, doesn't it?
So I think that my hope is that they'll spend a few years introducing new characters.
Yeah.
'Cause, I mean, they have mutants and Fantastic Four and some other folks to integrate and bring into the world. And that gives them an opportunity to tell smaller stake stories.
It's true.
For a while, while they build to the next 10 years.
I think it's going to be Peter Parker. I think what they have the luxury of knowing that they can map out a 10-year plan is the audience grows up with the characters.
I'm really curious if they're going to do a Falcon Captain America film.
It's going to be a TV show.
Oh, right. That's with
Yes.
him and Sebastian
Yeah.
Stan.
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Hey, I saw Alita Battle Angel.
That movie's
Oh.
amazing.
Dude.
I watched it twice in theaters.
So this is the thing is I didn't know what we were going to get. I didn't, you never know what
Christoph
those
Waltz
kind of,
is
with a trailer
yeah,
like that.
Yeah.
And then, so one of my oldest friends, a screenwriter, was like, he's like, it's totally decent. There's no villain, but she's great. And I agree. There is a villain.
The villain is the world, kind of.
Yeah.
It's,
And
you know.
But
Yeah.
I thought it was fantastic. I really enjoyed the spit out of it. And when we, in the canon of PG-13 movies, choosing one F-bomb, hers after she jams and
God.
breaks off after she jams her fist into the eye of the villain, it snaps off her arm as she says, "Fuck your mercy."
That is such, and that is
Very
a transition from, because it's James Cameron who wrote the script, consolidating several of these books.
Right.
And in the manga, that villain who's there, he has those tentacles.
Yeah.
He takes a different direction because I believe in the manga, like, he's secretly in love with her, infatuated with her.
Right.
But there is that very much scene where she gets reduced to nothing but essentially an arm.
Yeah.
And for someone, having a robot body, like, that is nothing. How could she get out of this? And the way he and Robert Rodriguez brought that scene and like scripted the action around it, It is worth seeing.
It was
screen.
effective.
I was really
I
impressed.
thought it was really lovely. Where did you watch it in a hotel or something, or were
Yeah,
you?
I watched it in
Okay.
a hotel on a big screen.
Yeah.
Yeah, Rosa Salazar plays Alita.
Yeah, I was blown
It's a
away by that
terrific
movie.
performance. There's a few uncanny valley moments. Her face is a little too smooth in a couple of spots, but I didn't really mind that.
I
There's
didn't
a
see that on the big
full
screen.
character there.
Well, they said that if you watch the very first trailer for that,
Oh yeah, the eyes are much bigger.
the eyes are smaller. It turns out
What?
making the eyes bigger helps with the pupils. Sorry.
Oh,
Making
the
the
pupils.
pupils
Oh,
bigger
fascinating.
helps with the
they shrunk the eye size a little bit and they made the pupils bigger.
because then you don't have to believe it's a human.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I mean, this is why if you're doing something with weird CG animation like I do for a
Yeah,
living,
yeah.
then it's better to do cartoons than real
Right.
people because you don't get skeezed out.
I forgot to mention this. Julie was asking me yesterday, how many Valkyries are cosplaying these days? And
Great question.
my experience was I couldn't call to mind more than a couple that I'd seen recently.
Yeah. Yeah, and maybe at Comic-Con we'll see a lot more.
I would bet
definitely.
we'll see
She
more
asked
this
about
year.
Hela. I mean, because
So I've seen a bunch.
I've seen a hell of
Hela,
hats.
I've seen
Yeah.
a ton, and really wonderful versions of it. And Down and Creative made one.
Yes, and I think Hela is striking because the makeup is so much part of it, and there's a challenge in building the headdress,
antlers, yeah.
the antlers, and Valkyrie is only in her final outfit, her battle outfit.
Right,
toward
Valkyrie
the
could
end.
work. I mean, I want. So if you do cosplay as Valkyrie, tweet to us or me, or put it in the comments because I'd love to see your Valkyrie costume. I think there should be more. Tessa Thompson is so amazing in that film.
I love the Tessa Thompson scrapper Valkyrie when we first see her when she's obviously hammered,
Yes.
can't work her ship. Like, it's so good.
You know,
It's such
one
a
of the
good moment.
problems that movies that try and play with that comedy, real stakes and comedy stakes have is it's easy to lose track of what stakes I'm supposed to care
Yeah.
about. And amazingly, Ragnarok never loses which stakes are important and which stakes are jokey. And yet, Jeff Goldblum, while being ludicrous and ridiculous, is still a scary villain. He's still dangerous.
So there's a great, if you want to know more about Thor Ragnarok, there's a great podcast that a friend of the site, Chuck Wendig and Anthony
Yeah.
Carboni do called Thor Ragnarok. And they break down, I think, a minute or 2 minutes of each, or maybe it's a 5-minute chunk of each. Each episode is only talking about 5 minutes. They get a guest each week.
Wow.
So they bring in they broke in the movie in these little tiny bits,
And they've made a podcast series.
and they've
out
made a
of it.
podcast series out of it. It's a very good.
What is the
podcast.
name for that type of podcast? It's like when they did the Hamilton one song every
Right.
episode.
Yeah. Oh,
It's
yeah.
like we're gonna dissect
Yeah.
this thing.
the room where it happened.
Is that
Trayvon Freeze.
right? Right.
podcast?
I'm saying
Yeah.
that's like a
I
whole
was the
subgenre.
first, I was
should
the
be a
first guest
genre
on that
name. Yeah.
podcast.
It's a lovely podcast. I highly recommend it. Can we jump back to something a minute
Yeah,
ago?
by all means.
So we were talking about Star Wars and how they did massive reshoots on Solo and Rogue One. I mean, and I think we all ended up on the same page with Last Jedi. I mean, it is, I think, my favorite Star Wars movie at this point. But it's interesting to me that they did massive reshoots on Rogue One, and it turned out really well. Like that, I think that movie works on every. Like it tells a really compelling story at the end. I'm really sad about the way it ends, but it's really the perfect way for that movie to end.
So really, yeah. I agree.
And Solo kind of falls a little flat. But they had a similar, like, how do they have a similar, like, how did they do it right with one and swing and miss, right?
I have no idea.
This is the $1 billion question.
It is
I
a
guess.
$1 billion
alchemy
question.
of
I mean,
movie making.
Yeah.
on one hand, you have, from what I understand from the interviews with him, Tony Gilroy, one of the producers of Rogue One, was key and instrumental to those reshoots. And he's an amazing writer and actually an amazing director in his own right. Michael Clayton's one of my favorite movies of that genre of, I don't even know what you'd call that genre. But it's like the Alan Pakula, 1970s parallax view type films that, good thriller. But again, these kind of things, I could only imagine when you fire two people that have already shot most of a movie and you bring in Ron Howard. These are things that nobody outside the studio will ever fully know the actual story on. I just resolved myself to knowing that you were never going to know. Obviously, they were trying to make a great movie that stuck, and something didn't quite gel.
So on a completely different note, did you read the thing yesterday about Last Crusade?
Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade.
About the screenplay?
No.
So that movie had rewrites. Gary Whitta, friend of the site,
Yeah,
and Rogue One screenwriter, posted about it yesterday. I'll dig out the link and send it to you, Norm, so you can put it in the show notes, and you should absolutely read it because it goes through and it compares the original draft that somebody found, like unearthed recently,
Right.
To the shooting script, to what was actually shot. And it goes through and explains the beats in a really interesting way, and the way they de-escalate, like the way that movie escalates over time. So the threat is constantly ramping up versus like originally, for example, in the original script that was written by the credited screenwriter, who I can't remember who it is off the top of my head. When Indy goes to his dad's house, he finds his housekeeper dead in the house, which immediately sets a tone that this is a life or death peril versus, hey, my dad's missing. Right, he's gone off on a walkabout. There's the Brotherhood of the Cruciform Sword was originally a minion of the Sultan, who's working with the Nazis. So he's just a garden variety bad guy, Nazi stooge, versus a person who has been working with a group for thousands of years to protect the secret. And it's like these tiny little changes that made that movie a phenomenally, but like I can't imagine what the movie would have been like as the way the script was originally described.
Fascinating. That kind of unpacking. There's a really great documentary, it was a long form article about the making, and we talked about this on the podcast, the making of The Thing. Yeah. How having 2 or 3 months between the interior photography and the exterior up in Alaska, Carpenter basically edited the whole film, saw ways in which he could make it more efficient, changed the shooting script radically because they'd shot almost exactly this script. And then because of these efficiencies, there's one character that dies and it's never explained, or it's never actually clear who kills them, but it doesn't matter because you're not paying attention
who cares?
to that.
Yeah, that person didn't matter.
That's awesome.
I mean, we saw a glimpse of it when we went to the Stanley Kubrick exhibit, and you saw the Spartacus script and all his handwritten notes and all those things. And we would love kind of like a script editor's commentary. Would be great.
And I mean, with Kubrick, I've come to the mythos is that Kubrick was like every frame was drawn carefully and he shot exactly. I don't think that's the case at all.
I think
after
like
looking
that
at the
is
exhibit,
thing.
I think that Kubrick shot as much as he possibly could, so that when he got into the edit room, the film that came out of the edit bay could be what it wanted to be. That he had all the coverage necessary to let the thing unfold in and of itself. And it's an amazing. That's a wonderful way to work, but it's very different than the mythos of the hyper precision.
Right. And it just happens that because he has a great eye, every shot that he shot was probably fantastic.
Right.
And that's why the cream of the crop is that good.
Well, and it's also possible that his process changed from the time he made Spartacus to the time he made Eyes Wide Shut, because that was 35, 40 years.
By all means.
Yeah.
Before we continue this week, I want to let you know that Still Entitled is also made possible with support from TripleByte, because applying to programming jobs sucks. You have to put the right keywords in your resume. You spend hours and hours on phone screens and take-home projects, and that's assuming the company even responds to your application. Well, if you're a software engineer, TripleByte can help. They work with over 400 top tech companies, from big names like Dropbox and Adobe to exciting startups. You do one brief online interview with them, and if you do well, you get to go straight to final interviews with the companies on their platform. It's like the common app for software engineers. TripleByte does not look at your resume or where you went to school. All they care about is if you can code, because that's what really matters. Not a sheet of paper. It's about your personal experience and about your abilities. Apply now at triplebyte.com/untitled. That's TripleByte, B-Y-T-E, byte as in 8 bits. And as a special offer for listeners of the show, if you take a job through TripleByte, they'll offer you a $1,000 signing bonus. Now back to the conversation.
There's no way to get from Eyes Wide Shut. I want to hear about your time at Fan Fusion in Phoenix.
Phoenix Fan Fusion was fantastic.
Your first time
at that.
First time at Phoenix Fan Fusion was fantastic. A little alliteration.
Ooh, yeah, I know.
And you did an incognito, a real incognito this time. Tell us about your
Well,
walk
I didn't
through the
tell
convention.
people I was hitting the floor. I brought a costume. I brought a costume that I had not worn in public before. Well, actually, I tell a lie. I wore this costume actually in order to go see Endgame with Kishore.
Oh, nice. Okay.
And hold on just a second. I'm looking. Sorry. Yeah. My costume was a Captain America Civil War suit built by Robert Fitch and Kevin Gossett.
Okay.
And they specifically used the same techniques to build this suit that the original movie suit was, which is it's all sewn out of 4-way stretch dance fabric, Lycra.
Okay.
But the patterning on it is a screen printed pattern to make it look like it's ballistic nylon.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
That's the trick, to get the actors comfortable wearing these suits all day.
Well, it turns out what a huge expense on a Marvel film, Deborah Nadoolman Landis told me this, a huge expense in the Marvel universe is getting the actors out of their costumes so they can eat.
Oh wow.
And getting them back in.
Yeah.
Like you could lose a couple of hours of production time with that. And so they started making Cap suits more wearable. And apparently by Winter Soldier and Civil War, he's like, oh, this is super comfortable. I can wear this all day long. I don't need to take it off.
So you had the helmet.
I had the helmet.
You were walking around.
I put it on. I did not shave my mustache.
Okay.
I did not shave my beard. So
Your
I'm walking
take on
around.
Cap. Yep.
What's that?
Your take on Cap.
It's my take on Cap.
Old man Cap.
Well, I didn't think
Older.
of it. That comes later.
Middle-aged Cap, Norm.
Oh, I'm happy to be old Cap. So I'm coming down the escalator into the main vendor floor, and I'm 1/3 of the way down the escalator when the guy behind me goes, "Hey, Adam." I got found about half a dozen more times.
You need to build some bad costumes. That's the only way out of this problem.
I think you're plausibly right. It was a fun costume to wear. It's a very easy costume to wear. It's super comfortable. It feels really good. I have a pair of big foam boobs inside to actually fill it out, and I'm going to have to add biceps. I noticed in the mirror I look a little...
So like your Thor muscle suit's too much.
Oh, yeah, way too much.
Yeah, okay.
No, I need this muscle by muscle I need to put into this thing.
How was the convention? The floor?
Convention is great. The convention floor felt really big.
Was this at the Phoenix Convention Center? The big one downtown?
Not sure.
Okay.
I think so. I'm sorry. I get to these places
the
and
Uber
I'm
took
in
you
and
where
out of
you
my
needed to
hotel
go.
room,
Yeah, no,
and
I
mostly
understand.
it's like
Okay.
a whirlwind. The people were great. The people that we dealt with there was great. I got to spend a bunch of time in the green room. I did not approach Jeff Goldblum.
What?
See, he's too important to me.
Is this the one? He's the one you can't talk to.
Well,
You
no,
talked to Harrison Ford.
I did. Harrison Ford came over and talked to me.
Okay, that's different.
Pee Wee Herman, Paul Rubens was there.
What?
This lovely, sweet little girl, maybe 5 years old, started saying something about atoms, and her dad said, well, here's an atom. And she started telling me facts about atoms.
That's amazing.
That were amazing. Like she was super on her physics.
That's rad.
At 5, just fully explaining to me how atoms work. And then she says, and they're responsible for electricity. And I said, well, actually, a part of them is responsible for electricity. And she was like, what? And I was like, well, there's components of an atom, a neutron, proton, and electron. And electrons make electricity. And she was like, I got to tell you something. And then she like downloaded some more information. It was, it turned out to be Summer Glau's daughter, I believe.
Oh, that's awesome.
Just adorable and very sweet.
That's very good.
That's really cool.
It was a very fun green room, very lovely. Nichelle Nichols was there. I also didn't approach her. Again, in the green room it's
a private time.
It is. And then I went out and I took pictures with 750 people in a 5-hour marathon that I have not done such a thing before.
Wow.
I have to tell you, the next day I was sore across my whole body just from the kind of all that energy. It was really... it was fabulous. The fans were great. The costumes, phenomenal.
I saw someone as a rocket, like a Saturn V or like a...
Yeah, no, she was a Falcon Heavy.
Falcon
with
Heavy, that's what it was.
This
Yeah,
is a
that's
girl
awesome.
wearing a backpack that was a giant, like 9.5 foot tall
Booster,
Falcon
yeah.
Heavy.
That's amazing.
Wearing a SpaceX
good.
spacesuit.
Oh, that's great.
Great.
Phenomenal. There was a Hell Girl. There was a Hellboy. This young woman came up in what is the Star Wars dancing character with the two?
Oh, like the Twi'lek
I
dancing
think so.
girl?
This
Yeah.
woman
The
came
tentacle
up
lady.
dressed as that and said that actually she got into cosplay because of watching stuff on Tested, and now she
That's
was
amazing.
a featured cosplay speaker at the Fan Fusion.
That's rad.
The fan love was real and abiding and really made me glow. It was delightful.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, there's also some good cosplay at Maker Faire, and they're trying to bring more of the cosplay as a track there.
This is the second year they've done it, right?
Yeah. They brought in a bunch of cosplayers, Egg Sisters, Jackie Craft. and we all judged cosplay contests and prop building contests and
Yeah.
some really great stuff. And the guy who won like the best prop made the exoskeleton from Elysium.
Oh yes, yeah,
And-
yeah. Was that an RPF build? Is that the guy who's been
I
doing it
think
on the
so.
RPF?
Yeah, and it's one of those things that like I don't know anyone who likes the film Elysium.
I like the way it looked.
But
Yeah,
it
it's
doesn't matter.
beautiful, yeah.
It doesn't matter if you like the film. The props, you can still love making the costume and props from it because you can still appreciate all of that design
Indeed,
and
indeed.
costuming.
So we didn't talk about the end. Like speaking of props and costuming, like the end. Sorry to add money to my meter. We had to talk. We haven't talked about the end of Game of Thrones here. I don't think yet. Right?
And that's a television show, yes?
I believe so. Yes, it's on
giving you
the
shit.
home box office network. But I mean, there was a lot of kerfuffle about the end of the show.
Yeah,
but we had the
people-
opportunity a couple of times to see the props and costumes.
In
And
person, yeah, and they have them in AT&T stores around the country.
Oh,
I think
really?
still,
Really?
because, it's all HBO is owned by AT&T now.
Yeah, it was amazing. Like the work that the people that worked on that show did was the most amazing I've ever seen in terms of props and costumes.
Really?
like those things were built. Those dresses and the armor and all that stuff was built to withstand a level of inspection that would never happen on TV.
So awesome.
So
Or-
even I know you don't watch the show, Adam.
Yeah.
but
I will. I will.
It doesn't even.
You're probably
You
fine.
don't need to. But the thing I'll send you links to is after every episode this past season, because every episode this last season was like an hour and a half, basically
Yeah.
a movie that they made for like $15 million
Yeah.
each episode, and they do a behind the scenes piece. They had a team on set to film like the
Right.
making of, and the best stuff is always with the prop makers and the set designers, and they talk about very openly about the kind of problem solving, the unique problem solving they have to do for these giant battle scenes. Like for example, how do you get giant stacks of zombie carcasses to lay around a castle? Do you have the prop team make 1,000 bodies? No, that's super expensive, super heavy, and they came up with a way to basically vacuum form, basically make a
vacuum form corpse mound.
corpse mound that they could dress that would be light enough that then they can stack and place and
Wow.
then put a few extras on top of those.
Crazy.
Stuff like that. That's the best part, I think, of the season of Game of Thrones.
I never watched the show really, but I look at the costumes, and you know that even a dress that like somebody wears for a half a scene and is on screen for 3 minutes has the most amazing embroidery and beadwork that you've ever seen on a costume, on a piece
Amazing.
of costume work. Anyway, sorry,
Okay.
I completely non sequitured there.
No,
but
that's
go
all
ahead.
right.
It's an episode of Non Sequiturs.
I mean,
I
that's
will
what we
give
do.
one final recommendation for the movie Booksmart.
Yep. Yes.
This is-
Olivia Wilde's directorial debut. Am I correct?
Yes, it's out in theaters. It's a wide release, and it might be in theaters for just a couple more weeks because it didn't do so well for the holiday break. But so highly recommended.
I'm so glad to hear that. The trailer, I loved the trailer. Those two actresses seemed amazing. And what I've been hearing is this like a super raunchy comedy that's not
So
that threads this interesting needle of being both really funny and really true and raunchy and really sweet all at the same time.
and that's all true. And I think the easy pitch was this is super bad, but two girls,
right.
and it's even easier.
But
pitch
I've
'cause
heard
one
that
of
it's a
those
little
two
more
girls
complex than that. Am I
is
right?
way more complex.
Yeah.
And then one of the leads is Jonah Hill's sister, even. So like it's very easy to make that comparison as a way to get people in the theaters. I think it's a much better movie than Superbad. And Superbad, I think, has some great, heartfelt moments. But this movie, and I can't relate to the kids in this, right? These are 18-year-olds in high school, and they're two girls. Like I don't know what it is that makes it true, but it just felt true.
That's awesome.
Olivia
Wilde's been tweeting about it
Yeah.
and saying, get out there if you want more. Look, if there are good movies, it's important that we go see them in the theater to support them because
That's how you
That's
get
how
more
you
good
get
movies
more good
made.
movies.
If you want less TV and more movies, go see movies.
I read this wonderful defense of Jupiter Ascending that was like, hey, it may be really problematic, but bless the Wachowskis for going out way over their skis to try out stuff like this that's original and different.
Agreed. More Speed
Philosophically.
Racer too.
Yeah.
I mean, please, more Speed Racer. For the love of God.
Or they're going to bring back The Matrix.
Well, this has gone all over the place.
Yeah, non
That's what happens when we don't podcast for a while. When we
It's
catch-
true.
Yeah,
catch
we
up.
got to get it all out.
You are going to be gone this weekend. You're going to be in New York.
I am.
So BookCon, I
It's
believe.
BookCon. It's a in and out, something like 36 hours.
What's your food strategy? Well, I guess you'll tell us that. You don't want to spoil it because
I have no idea.
Okay.
I don't know.
Haven't
I
considered.
always make sure I have one Sabret's hot dog at least.
Okay.
Because the New York Sabret's hot dog is
Yeah.
the shizzle.
This
you
time
can-
of year, you could get the ice cream from the trucks on the side of the road, too.
I never
That's-
do that.
Really?
Yeah.
No, that's always
it's just a
fun.
hot dog.
Okay.
So the book tour is still going strong. I think there's still a couple more dates, even in the Bay Area.
Yeah, I'm heading to Palo Alto tomorrow. The questions from the audiences on this book tour have been amazing. I got to have a lovely some drinks with author who just signed a book deal, Lauren Hoff, who's the writer of that wonderful long-form piece in HuffPo over Christmas about being a cable guy in the D.C. area for 10 years, having installed cable in Dick Cheney's house.
Wow.
Oh, it's worth.
Wow.
We should put this link in the
Yeah,
show
yeah.
notes
You
because
give
it's-
Dick Cheney the, hey, I can hook you up with HBO for free deal. You just stab him a few times.
I also got to hang out with a couple of other Austinites. Although Evan Narcisse reached out to me and he was like, "Hey, I just walked past you taking a bunch of photos with fans at the Alamo Draft House, and I had been trying to remember who I had met last year, who I knew lived in Austin that I wanted to hang out with."
And it was Evan.
And when he
It was Evan.
texted me, I was
Oh, boy.
like, "Damn it, Evan, it's you! I wanted to hang out." And so it's next time I go to Austin, I'll make sure I reach out.
I finally saw Vice. Speaking of Cheney,
Dude,
that is a really good ass movie.
totally.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Sam Rockwell's always good. It turns out.
Dude, yeah, he's
Yeah.
fabulous.
Okay, sorry.
And
That's
on the
like
site,
we're gonna
we did publish One Day Build last week.
Boom!
So please check that out. It is the scratch building and kit bashing of a spaceship using Adam's vacuum former.
There's already
Ooh.
someone on Twitter who's done like a high-end CG
Yeah,
version of
I
it.
know.
Super sweet.
Yeah, and same with, you did a video a week and a half ago about Nilo's art with Brandon from Prop Store, and one of the artists, or one of the pieces that you liked,
Yeah.
someone turned that into a model as well.
I saw that, and they
Yeah.
3D printed it
Exactly.
already.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
you guys out there
awesome.
are amazing. We'll end with that.
Okay,
All right.
thanks for coming by, everybody. See y'all next week.
Yeah, we'll see you next week.
Thanks for listening this week. And once again, Still Entitled is made possible this week with support from the Rochester Institute of Technology. Did you know that faculties and students there recently built a robot fish because it could lead to a new wave of prosthetics? And now we're all hooked. At RIT, that creative team of engineers is onto something life-changing. Learn more about that project at rit.edu/untitled. And we'll see you next week.